My parents begged for 5 minutes of honesty. What they admitted left me cold, staring at the people who raised me, realizing they'd rather believe a lie than face the truth about their own child. The voicemail came while I was still at work. Just 10 seconds long. My mom's voice, flat, mechanical, like she was reading a grocery list. "You're out. Don't come back. We're moving forward without you." That was it. No explanation. No warmth. Not even my name. I sat there staring at my phone, playing it again, making sure I hadn't misheard. But no, it was exactly what I thought it was. A dismissal. Like I was some employee they could fire with a voicemail. I didn't even bother calling back. I knew that tone. When my mom said something in that voice, it was final. No debate. So I just texted back, "Noted." Then I smiled to myself and went back to work. Because if they thought they could cut me out that easily, they had no idea what was about to hit them. The first thing I did was log into the trust account. I had built that trust from scratch. My parents didn't understand the first thing about how it worked, they just knew it was there, and that I told them it was for the family's future. They never realized how much power my signature carried. So I pulled it. With one click, everything froze. Investments, tax shelters, emergency funds, locked down tighter than a vault. Next up was the joint account. That account was supposed to be for emergencies. Like when Dad broke his wrist last year and couldn't work. But lately? I'd noticed grocery runs, Amazon packages, even dinner bills coming out of it. That wasn't what I signed up for. So I shut it down completely, locked it with two-factor authentication tied to my email, and watched the balance drop to zero. My money, back where it belonged. And then, the real estate deal. A 2-story place just outside Portland. My credit, my down payment, my name on the escrow. They begged me to help them get it for retirement, and I agreed, on the condition that the house stayed in my name until they could pay their share. Well, guess what? That condition no longer applied. I called the agent, told her to remove me immediately. She sounded stunned, but I didn't give her an explanation. Why should I? Nobody explains themselves after a 10-word exile on voicemail. By the time I got home, my name was wiped off everything. I thought I might get a few angry texts, maybe a voicemail or two. What I didn't expect was to wake up the next morning to 79 missed calls. My phone buzzed nonstop the second I turned it on, Dad, Mom, random numbers, even their lawyer. One voicemail from him stuck out, "We have a serious problem. Call me back." I didn't. I stood in my kitchen and laughed, loud, real laughter. Not bitter, not fake. Relief. For once, they had a mess on their hands that I wasn't going to clean up. By noon, the text started rolling in. From Mom, "We didn't mean it like that." From Dad, "It was just a misunderstanding, let's talk." From my sister? Nothing. Silence. And that silence screamed louder than anything. It wasn't a coincidence. She'd been hinting for weeks that we should simplify ownership of the house, that maybe I was making things too complicated. She had a way of making manipulation sound helpful. That was her specialty, to slip in, play the innocent, and twist everything behind the scenes. I used to defend her, even when she didn't deserve it. But now? Now the puzzle pieces were falling into place. The sudden coldness from my parents. The rehearsed voicemail. The fact that they cut me out without a single conversation. It had her fingerprints all over it. She had always been jealous of the trust my parents put in me, the way I handled the money, the logistics, the future. She wanted that control. And now she thought she'd taken it. What she didn't realize was that when I get pushed out, I don't come crawling back. I don't beg for scraps. I come back with fire. I ignored the calls. I ignored the texts. I ignored every half-hearted apology and guilt-laced voicemail piling up. I wanted to see how long it would take before the desperation cracked through their calm facade. It took 3 days. That morning, I got a security alert from my building. My dad was standing at the front gate. He didn't ring the buzzer. He didn't call. He just stood there, shifting his weight, checking his phone, glancing up at the windows like maybe I'd appear. He waited nearly 10 minutes before finally walking away. I watched the whole thing on the security feed and didn't lift a finger. Later that night, I found a folded note taped to my door. My mom's handwriting, neat, slanted, like a relic from Catholic school. It was full of vague apologies. Lines like, "We didn't mean to hurt you," and "Please don't make any decisions you can't undo." I read it once, then dropped it straight into the trash. No accountability, no explanation. Just more sugar-coated words meant to pull me back in. Still nothing from my sister. Which told me everything I needed to know. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd pushed me out of the trust, the accounts, the house, the family. All without a direct confrontation. That was her style, sabotage dressed up as helpfulness. But I wasn't about to let her celebrate for long. So I called the real estate agent. She answered all cheerful at first, but her tone shifted the second I asked her to send a formal withdrawal notice to my parents. She hesitated, muttered something about not wanting to get in the middle of family business. "You're not in the middle," I told her. "You're a paper trail." She sent the email. I didn't need to see my parents' reaction. I could imagine it perfectly, the cold, sinking shock of receiving something in writing. Something permanent. A legal notice that their son had officially pulled out of the deal holding their finances together. The next morning, Mom tried calling me 6 more times. I didn't answer. By afternoon, their lawyer emailed me. One line jumped out, "There's more to this than you think." That stuck with me. More to this. What exactly was I missing? I didn't have to wait long. That night, my sister finally broke her silence. A single text, "I hope you're proud of what you've done." No punctuation. Just raw venom. And in that moment, everything crystallized. She had been behind all of it. She thought she could cut me out, take my place, control everything. What she didn't understand, what she never understood, was that I had no intention of crawling back. Not until every last piece of damage was complete. And believe me, I was just getting started. The next morning, I stopped at a gas station on the way to work. As I was pumping gas, I heard someone call my name. It was one of my dad's old buddies, a guy I hadn't seen in over a year. He smiled wide, slapped me on the shoulder, and asked how the house was coming along. Then, just as casually as if he were commenting on the weather, he said something that froze me. "I heard you pulled out of the deal, 'cause you couldn't handle the financial pressure. Rough stuff, man." I smiled back, nodded, didn't correct him. But inside? My stomach dropped. She was already spinning her version of the story. Planting seeds. Twisting the narrative before the dust had even settled. That's when I knew I needed answers. So I called up our old accountant, the one we trusted before my sister convinced everyone to switch to some younger, trendier, proactive guy. He agreed to meet. I brought him the copies of the trust paperwork I'd held onto. He flipped through the pages, nodding like it was yesterday. When I asked him straight, what could sabotage this trust from the inside without being obvious, he leaned back, gave me a wary look. Said he didn't want to get in the middle. But then, he offered one hint. If someone fed your parents the wrong kind of information, and made it look like it came from you, that could tilt everything. That was all I needed. Now I had direction. She'd been whispering poison in their ears, fanning their paranoia, maybe even forging details, all to shove me out of the picture. But the second she made me her enemy, she lost her safety net. I didn't need to explode. I didn't need to storm in with rage. Not yet. I just needed patience. Time would unravel her lies for me. And I didn't have to wait long. A few days later, I got a voicemail from the new accountant, the one my sister had pushed for. He asked if I could clarify a few discrepancies in the trust paperwork and bank activity. I had never spoken to this man once in my life. Why was he suddenly calling me for clarity? I didn't call him back. Instead, I forwarded the voicemail straight to my old accountant. Within the hour, he called me. His tone was sharp. Sounds like someone tried to amend the trust. Without my signature? I asked. That's the part that doesn't add up, he said. He couldn't confirm who initiated the changes, but one thing was clear, someone had tried to sneak through modifications under the radar. Someone who didn't realize that no matter how messy things got emotionally, my legal authority hadn't just disappeared because I'd gone quiet. In that moment, I knew exactly who it was. She hadn't just stepped into my role, she'd done it sloppily. And then it got even better. The following week, out of nowhere, my cousin texted me, asking if we could grab lunch. We barely talked, so I was curious. Over sandwiches, she leaned in and said she'd been hearing things. My sister had been making the rounds with relatives, claiming I was cutting off the family out of greed, that I never wanted to share anything, that I'd always been controlling. I almost laughed out loud. Controlling. She picked that word carefully. It sounds dirty, manipulative, easy to believe. It wasn't an accusation too extreme, just enough to smear my name. But here's the thing, lies spread fast, but inconsistencies spread faster. She told one version of the story to my uncle, another to my cousin. Slightly different timelines. Different motivations. Same villain, me. People started comparing notes. And cracks started forming. Then came the slip-up I didn't see coming. An email from the real estate agent. She'd accidentally CC'd me on a reply to my sister. And in that thread, plain as day, was my sister trying to salvage the deal without me on the contract. And to top it off? She'd casually implied that I'd pulled out due to mental instability. That was the trigger. She wasn't just whispering lies behind closed doors anymore, she was trying to discredit me to the one professional who knew the truth, who had seen the paperwork, the payments, the down payment I'd scraped together. She was trying to erase my contributions with one ugly label. So I snapped. I wrote back to the agent directly. Attached proof of every payment I'd made, forwarded old emails showing the deal was my idea from the start, and copied in my lawyer. I didn't add any commentary, just the facts. Within an hour, the agent replied. Cold. Professional. She thanked me for clarifying and made it clear she would not be entertaining any more non-transactional communication from my sister. Translation? My sister had just been cut out of the conversation. And right on schedule, the phone call started. Mom, then Dad, then, finally, her. When I picked up, she launched straight into accusations. Said I was destroying everything and playing the victim. That she had only asked a few questions. I let her rant. Then I asked one simple thing, why did you lie to the real estate agent about me? Silence. Then, click. She hung up. That was it. The first real crack. Proof she knew she'd been caught. I still didn't know every detail of what she'd told our parents, but I knew it had to be personal, specific enough to make them turn on me instantly. I just had to corner them into saying it out loud. And then? I'd burn it all down. The chance came faster than I expected. That Sunday, my mom called again. I ignored it. Then a text popped up. Please, just give us 5 minutes. No yelling, no accusations. 5 minutes. That was all I needed. I called back. They were on speaker, I could hear it in a heavy silence. My dad started stumbling through some half-prepared speech about how things had gotten out of hand. My mom cut in, saying they never meant to hurt me, that they were just reacting to what they were told. My opening. Told by who? Silence. Then Dad cleared his throat. Your sister said you were planning to take full control of everything. That you wanted to leave us with nothing. That you said we were dragging you down. I couldn't even react at first. The lie was so specific, so ridiculous, I almost laughed. But I kept my voice steady. When did I supposedly say that? Mom hesitated. She said you told her a few weeks ago. In the car after that argument at dinner. Except, there had never been a car ride. There had never been an argument. That dinner had been quiet, tense, and we'd left in separate cars. It was a dumb, obvious fabrication. Did it ever occur to you to ask me? I asked. Silence. Dad spoke again. She also told us you'd already met with a lawyer about cutting us out of the trust. That you wanted her to take over once we were gone. That's when it clicked. She hadn't just lied, she'd flipped the script. Everything she was scheming behind the scenes, she had pinned on me. And my parents swallowed it whole, because it was easier to believe their son was greedy than to admit their daughter was manipulating them. I didn't yell. I didn't explain. I just said, meet me tomorrow. All of you. No excuses. I'll bring the documents. You bring the lies. They agreed. And I knew tomorrow would be the day everything came crashing down. The next evening, we gathered around my parents' dining room table. The air was heavy, thick with tension. I carried in a folder, bank statements, email printouts, even the forwarded message from the real estate agent where my sister casually suggested I was mentally unstable. She sat across from me, arms folded tight across her chest, chin tilted up like this was her show and she was still running it. I didn't start with words. I started with evidence. First, I slid the agent's email across the table. No commentary, no dramatics, just the page. Then the receipts of every payment I'd made. Then the text she'd sent to relatives, little nuggets of poison crafted to make me look selfish. Each time, I set a paper down, I stayed silent. The weight of the words was heavier than anything I could have said. Mom's eyes never lifted from the table. Dad kept sneaking glances at her like he was waiting for her to rescue the situation. And then, the final piece, I laid down the forwarded confirmation from our old accountant. A note stating that someone had tried to alter the trust, someone pretending they had joint authority. That broke it. For the first time, my sister didn't have a quick comeback. Her lips parted like she wanted to fire back, but nothing came out. I stood. You wanted me out? Congratulations. Now you're out. Then I turned to my parents. She lied. And you let her. You believed her because it was easier than talking to me. Silence. Finally, Mom whispered, we didn't know. I looked her dead in the eye. You didn't ask. And then I walked out. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad, we've removed her from the trust. Moments later, another from Mom, we were wrong. Please come back. I didn't respond. Not right away. Because making her twist in the wind had taken planning, and making them finally see the truth had taken patience. Forgiveness might come someday. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. 3 days after they cut her out, my sister showed up at my office. That shocked me. I'd moved locations a year ago, hadn't told a soul. Maybe she dug through old emails. Maybe she followed me. Either way, there she was, standing in the lobby like she owned the place. She asked for 10 minutes. I gave her 5. She walked in smiling, too wide, too polished, fake as glass. She spoke calmly, as if this whole nightmare had been some silly misunderstanding between siblings. She admitted nothing. No lies, no schemes. Instead, she blamed stress, confusion, emotions running high. Then she cut to the chase. She wanted back in, not with me, with the business. She leaned forward, all sugar-coated confidence, and said, if you give me a small role, it'll show Mom and Dad we're still strong as a family. I almost laughed in her face. Instead, I stood, walked to my filing cabinet, and pulled out a folder I hadn't touched in months. Inside? An old draft of her so-called business pitch. Some flaky lifestyle brand she swore would go viral. She'd begged me to fund it once. I'd said no. I handed her the folder. Start your own. She flipped through the pages, her face twisting from confusion to anger as she realized what I was saying. This wasn't a detour. This was a dead end. You think you're punishing me? She snapped. I met her eyes. No, not yet. She stormed out. I didn't stop her. That evening, I called the accountant. I asked him how fast he could restructure everything, transfer controlling interest in the business accounts away from the family as a whole into a 2-person structure, me and Dad. No loopholes. No back doors. No chance for anyone else to worm their way in. He told me it could be finalized by the end of the week. Perfect. When the paperwork cleared, I made a move no one expected. I called my parents and asked to meet. Just the 3 of us. We sat down over dinner, and I laid out everything. The emails, the forged timelines, the attempt to alter the trust, the lies that had nearly ripped us apart. I laid it bare until there was nothing left to deny. Then I hit them with the offer. I'll bring everything back, the trust, the house, the joint ownership. But only if she's cut off completely. Mom's face tightened, uneasy, like she wanted to argue. Dad didn't hesitate. Done, he said. And that was it. That week, I reinserted my name into the real estate deal. The agent looked surprised but pleased. This time, financing went through without a hitch. My credit. My assets. My control. I didn't bother telling my sister. I wanted her to find out the hard way, from the public property records. And she did. The next morning, I got a text from her. You stole it from me. I didn't reply. That afternoon, her best friend, someone I'd known for years, sent me a quiet message. She's been trying to get a loan. No one will co-sign. I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself. The house she wanted? Mine again. The trust she tried to hijack? Rebuilt, without her name anywhere near it. The business she thought she could sneak into? Blocked. Permanently. And this time, no one was coming to save her. 3 quiet weeks passed. Not a word from her. No texts, no calls, not even some half-baked apology wrapped in sugar. After all the lies, the manipulation, the smear campaign she orchestrated, my sister simply vanished into silence. And that silence? It told me everything. She wasn't regrouping. She wasn't planning her next play. She was out of options. Meanwhile, things with my parents started to shift. Slowly, carefully, like testing the strength of old beams after a storm. Sunday coffees turned into regular dinners. We went through moving paperwork together, sorting through boxes, revisiting the past without flinching. They didn't defend her anymore. Not because I demanded it, but because the fog had lifted. They finally saw it all, clear, unfiltered, no excuses. One evening, Mom pulled out the old folder with the original real estate agreement. Her hands lingered on the cover before she asked, almost hesitantly, if I'd consider restoring the original plan, shared ownership between me, her, and Dad. I didn't give her an answer. Not right away. Instead, I drafted something new. Full ownership in my name, notarized, airtight. But with a clause granting them permanent living rights, no rent, no expiration, no loopholes. And if anything ever happened to me, they'd still be protected. No one, especially not my sister, could ever contest it. They agreed immediately. It wasn't just about property anymore. It was about drawing a line in ink so dark that no one could ever smudge it again. A week later, I walked into the title office. Signing those revised documents felt different this time. I saw my name back on the papers, back where it belonged, and I felt something settle inside me. The house wasn't just ours, it was secure. She wasn't just out. She was legally locked out. 2 days later, the trust was finalized. Only me and my parents now. The clause is ironclad. Our accountant made sure of it. Any attempt to tamper with the trust would automatically trigger a freeze and a full audit. A fortress she couldn't touch. Then came a voicemail from a blocked number. Her voice, smaller than I remembered. Tired. I'm sorry things turned out like this. You've made your point. I just hope someday you can be mature enough to move on. I deleted it without finishing. There was nothing to move on from. I didn't need her validation. She took her shot, tried to erase me, and now she was the one erased. Later, Dad told me she had called him too. Said she had a new business idea, needed money to start fresh. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't ask to come home. Just money. And for the first time in my life, I heard my dad say no. No excuses. No hesitation. Just no. And that one word told me we'd finally drawn the boundary that should have been there years ago. The day we moved into the new house, there was no champagne, no celebration. Just me and my parents carrying boxes, deciding which room would be whose. Mom hung up a photo of the 3 of us from 10 years ago, one of the rare pictures where we looked like a real team. She sighed and said she was tired of pretending things hadn't changed. And she was right. We were different now. A little bruised, maybe, but whole again. A few days later, her old best friend messaged me. Said my sister had been reaching out to anyone who'd listen, even people she hadn't spoken to in years, trying to sell her victim story. She was telling them she'd been cut out unfairly, that I'd manipulated our parents, stolen what was hers. But no one was buying it. Not anymore. The friend ended her message with just one line, "Whatever you did, she's completely alone now." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. This was never about revenge. It was about making sure the door she slammed behind me was the same one that stayed shut on her. She wanted control. She wanted leverage. She thought she could push me out and slip into my place smiling, untouchable. But now? No seat at the table. No name on the papers. No story anyone believed. And me, my mom, and my dad? We were finally home. Mini update. It's been a month since we settled into the house. Life has leveled out. My parents and I have a rhythm now, quiet, steady. We don't bring up what happened. Not because it's painful, but because it's behind us. They trust me again. And I've stopped looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next betrayal. She's silent. Completely. I heard through someone that she's renting a small place, tried to launch something on her own, but it fizzled. No support, no cosigners, no allies. She burned every bridge she had. The trust, the house, the business, everything is locked down, stable, mine. And I don't feel anger anymore. Just clarity. She thought cutting me out would give her everything. Instead, it left her with nothing. And that's exactly how it should be.